my channel. This is Tita Lavinia of Titas of Pageantry, and for this episode, let's finally get to talk about Miss International 2022 and what went wrong with our very own Hannah Arnold's campaign at Miss International. So please make sure you stick around, please subscribe to the channel, as well as hit that bell notification button for your weekly pageant fix. Hey guys, I hope that you're doing well. So I know that a lot of you have been following my live sesh on Miss International for quite some time, but of course, I can't expect you guys to sit through more than an hour's worth of live footage. So I'm doing this review for you because I feel like Miss International deserves this. The last time Miss International had their face-to-face pageant was in 2019. So it has been 3 years now. Might be a really good time to make himay what actually happened at Miss International. So before I start this, I just want to thank you guys for greeting me on my birthday. I know that some of you have sent me a little bit of something that allowed me to have my cake and coffee in Baguio, where I had a little bit of a vacation. But for Ronel, if you are watching, thank you so much. I'm wearing the earrings that you sent me. These are from an Australian brand called Pearl Luxo. So I think that they're really pretty and they're really fitting for this episode because we're going to talk about a lot of sakura, a lot of that floral thing going on. So yes, welcome to this episode of Miss International. So Miss International took place on December 13 at the Tokyo Dome. So I was actually hurrying to get back home, but because the pageant ran for like more than 5 hours, it allowed me to head home, change, and do some postings on Titas of Pageantry as well as YouTube because the long pageant in between allowed me to have like editing time and updating time. So the good thing about this pageant is that they definitely changed the setup a little bit. It's a lot darker now, a lot moodier. Even the songs, they had really catchy tunes. They had performers who were a lot younger, snappier, a lot more rock and roll. So I think that these were just little rebranding things that Miss International did. The ladies, they came out in their national costume. I thought that this was a really nice way to introduce the ladies because a lot of the pageants these days, they're already separating the national costume altogether, so they're no longer part of the show. So this was a welcome change for me. And I also like the national costume competition or the national costume segment because this was the time that Hannah Arnold shone the brightest for me. So I thought that was a really good way to introduce the candidates. So 65 candidates competed in Japan for Miss International, and they stayed in Japan for the pre-pageant activities for roughly a little over 2 weeks. So the good thing about this pageant was that even if it ran for like more than 5 hours, most of the things in between were like ceremonial, but the actual pageant was a lot shorter. So very early on, they cut to top 15. So this was a pretty interesting top 15. So the first one they called was Miss France, followed by Finland, New Zealand, Germany, the Philippines, of course, Cabo Verde, who was making their debut at Miss International this year, heavy favorite, Peru, Jamaica, Colombia, Costa Rica, Canada, Dominican Republic, another heavy favorite, Spain, Northern Marianas, as well as United Kingdom. So by the time they completed top 15, we were all very shocked to realize that it was only Hannah who made it as the only Asian in the roster. So surprisingly, our immediate neighbors such as Indonesia, Vietnam, even Hong Kong, even Malaysia, who I thought was really cute, did not make it. India, who was also doing pretty well, and India doesn't really do so well at Miss International. This year, we were glued on Miss India because we thought that Miss India probably has some of the characteristics and the qualities that Miss International is looking for, but even that was snubbed by the organization. Miss India did not make it. As for the Latin American countries, it's also quite telling that powerhouse country Venezuela also did not make it to top 15. So in a way, guys, us reaching top 15 as the only Asian was already such a huge feat at Miss International this year. So the ladies paraded first in their evening gown. So they allowed everybody to parade in their evening gown in twos. I wasn't so sure if I liked this format, but anyway, it's fine because at least that even if the ladies paraded in twos, they were given individual time to really feature what they were wearing. So by this time, Hannah wore a Leo Almodal bedazzled evening gown with silver and crystal details as well as red stone accents. But I'll talk more about that later on. So by the time swimsuit was presented and the swimsuit were of the ladies wearing green swimsuits of their choice. We waited for Hannah to be called into top eight. So by the time they called top eight, the ones who were included were Dominican Republic, Cabo Verde, Germany, Jamaica, Colombia, Spain, Canada, and Peru. So our hopes went down the drain when Miss Peru was called because honestly, a lot of us were so sure that Hannah was going to advance a little further. So the ladies of top eight, they all had that speech segment. To be honest with you, I didn't really get to listen to a lot of them. I do remember Germany not doing so well, but I remember Cabo Verde really moving me to her speech because what she was saying was that we're almost never represented at these pageants, and she would like to do more in her community and encourage younger ladies to make something of themselves. And I thought that her speech was the speech that really made sense. So it was just really unfortunate that we didn't get to hear Hannah during this time because I'm sure she would have prepared a really good speech for us. So by the time they called the winners, this was also quite surprising. Fourth runner up went to Miss Dominican Republic. Third runner up went to Miss Colombia. Second runner up went to Miss Peru. Now, I know a lot of you, even I myself, wanted Miss Peru to reach the top. But I also started noticing that Peru might have been a better fit, let's say, at Miss Supranational because she has that sweet face with a really banging body. But, she could also go further probably at Miss Grand International because of her physique. And first runner up went to Miss Cabo Verde. Now, if I'm going to be very honest with you, as much as I welcome the first runner up finish of Miss Cabo Verde, I also felt that this was missed opportunity for the organization because in their 60 years, Miss International hasn't crowned a winner from Africa. And maybe it doesn't leave a really good taste in someone's mouth to realize this because it just really seems like the organization has been snubbing the black girls or the ones coming from this region or this continent. So it would have been a really good way for them to just change things around had they crowned Miss Cabo Verde. Now, the eventual winner, of course, went to Miss Germany. She is Jasmin Selberg. Jasmine is the third winner from Germany. The last winner was from 1989. This was 33 years ago with Iris Klein. And what was good about Miss Germany is that Miss Germany is a pageant girl. She has been around these past couple of years. In fact, she competed against Maureen Montaigne at Miss Globe and she finished as one of her runners-up. And she also competed with Alison Black at Miss Supranational. Unfortunately, she did not get a placement at Miss Supranational. A lot of people are now saying that Jasmine's win could also be attributed to the Filipino training team who trained Jasmine, of course. And in fact, Jasmine's gown was made by a Filipino designer named Bench Ligieb, who also happens to be Hannah's designer from the first time she competed at Binibining Pilipinas. So, some fun facts about Jasmine. She looks like a villa. She looks like a character from Harry Potter. And I think this is because she is, of course, also half Estonian. So she was born in Estonia and she grew up in Germany. Japanese, she's taking up history as well as philosophy. So I think that this is a really good background for Miss International. Now, another interesting fact about her is that she speaks several languages. She speaks English. She, of course, speaks German, Estonian, and Korean. Why Korean? Because Miss Jasmine, of course, has a boyfriend who is Korean. So I do know that she has spent a considerable amount of time in Korea, and that she gets to travel a lot. So we're talking about someone who could be a really good representative for culture, because this is, of course, the nature of what Miss International is really pushing for. Now let's move on to the sad part. But I think this is also the part that a lot of pageant fans has been really accepting. So I want to look into why Hannah did not advance further, because a lot of us have like theories on this. But let me try to give you my thoughts and see what we come up with. Number one, I think it might have something to do with her long prep work. Now, you might think that, having a longer preparation time for these pageants would be beneficial for our candidates, because, of course, they would have more time to get their body prepared, get their wardrobe in order, and the other aspects of the competitions in order. But with Hannah, the 3 years in between probably also didn't help her, because not having a specific date for the competition might have just derailed her and her scheduling. Because honestly, guys, you can't train for 3 years straight. I'm pretty sure that in between, Hannah had to work, Hannah had to attend to other things like events, also had to probably make appearances at like fashion events, or maybe like fashion shows and things like that. So even if she had a 3 year prep time, it wasn't just about preparing for the competition, even preparing your body for the competition. So Hannah most likely had pockets of like time in between, wherein she would have like a full preparation time and then rest in between and then kickstart her training. So that probably also messed her up a bit, because by the time she competed at Miss International, there were already talks about her body not being the ideal size, or her body not looking pageant ready, or like other aspects of her preparation not being quite as ready. In fact, a lot of people are pointing out that they didn't really get to see Hannah do prep work for, like, let's say, learning some Japanese phrases, or maybe going into Japanese like culture immersion classes. So these are like the little things that people have been noticing. The prep time in between probably did not help her, whether it was a shorter prep time by the time she left, or a longer one by the time she was crowned. Number two for me is styling. Now, I think that this is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but major enough that people talked about this from the day Hannah left the Philippines up until she competed last December 13. So, styling was really a sore subject to a lot of Filipino pageant fans who, number one, have heightened style quotient these days. Number two, also have heightened sense of taste when it comes to really figuring out what types of styles would fit pageants such as Miss Grand International, Miss Earth, maybe Miss International. So we know our way around when it comes to styling. When we saw Hannah leave at the end of November in her lilac terno, she was already bombarded with a barrage of like really negative things, from the fabric choice that seemed like curtains to um, suits and dresses that weren't pressed properly. A lot of people say that, it's just styling, it's not really a huge deal, but maybe it is. Because, of course, the Japanese, they're very meticulous. They are very specific with what they want, they're very specific with their requirements. So I honestly think that when it came to styling, Hannah was appropriate. Hannah ticked the boxes. Hannah was comfortable in a lot of the things that she was wearing, but there didn't seem to be something that was extra, something that was for the fans. Hannah's campaign or her wardrobe at Miss International is the polar opposite on how things were presented with Gabby Bashano when Gabby competed at Miss Intercontinental. With Gabby, everything was a style buffet for us every single day. With Hannah, that was not the case. Now, I think that this is a case of just pleasing the Filipino pageant fans who, of course, want the best for their girls. We want our girls to look their best. We want our girls to look as if they're the most expensive girls out there. We want our girls to look as if they've been taken care of. But with the styling for Hannah this year at Miss International, they went for something comfortable. They went for something more low key. There wasn't a narrative whatsoever. She didn't bring in the Philippines to Japan. She didn't bring in Japan to Japan. I think the only reference we had from Hannah was the terno with the cherry blossom print work during the preliminaries, but that was just that. So I know it's a little nitpicky, but to be honest, even if Hannah was appropriate in everything, even if she brought along clothes that looked well, that looked presentable, looked really demure, it didn't bring about the competitive nature in Hannah. In fact, it made Hannah blend in with a lot of this pageant girls. So even her gown choice, I feel like it wasn't really a significant uh, part of why she didn't enter top eight. I think that these are just, secondary. These are just little things because I feel like at Miss International, you are observed before the pageant, and that the pageant itself is just the graduation, very much like Miss Grand International. So the choice of gown for me, although I wouldn't have picked that gown for Miss International, I don't think that this was the main cause for Hannah not entering top eight. Her gown choice for me, it was blingy. It was really nicely made. I thought that the cut was perfect for her and for her body type. I just felt that it was just rather dull. Thought that it was also, missed opportunity because Hannah is known for her pinks and her macaron colors, and we didn't see that. It would have been nicer if she had a little bit of color on, because we're looking at styling right now, and there has been a long debate about her hair, about her makeup, the saturation of her makeup, the flatness of her hair, and even with the gown choice, which registered gray in other photos, it just really looked drab and it didn't look quite as competitive. Next, I'd like to turn your attention also to just the heavy Photoshop work that happened at Miss International. Because before the heavy Photoshop work at Miss International, they had about a week of just releasing raw photos. And a lot of these raw photos did not show Hannah in the best light. In fact, a lot of the hostile countries out there would take photos of Hannah during the early days of the competition and then compare it with the heavily photoshopped images that were released by Miss International. And if you compare the two, it just doesn't add up. Unfortunately, these are things that are out of our hands, because it was Miss International who decided to like beautify everyone. And by the time they started doing this on all of the photos, everybody got comfortable, and a lot of these girls just started looking super stunning, super flawless, that you couldn't really figure out who was standing out, because in terms of beauty, they were all head to head because of the heavy Photoshop work. So I'm just thinking, it kind of doesn't make sense for everybody to really push for something that's more natural, something fresher, and then present them heavily edited. So I think that this also did not help Hannah in, just trying to convince everybody that she looks the same way, because by then we started figuring out that even the photos here in the Philippines have been edited, and it doesn't pretty much look like Hannah as she was competing at Miss International. Next, I'd like to also turn your attention to Hannah's demeanor at Miss International, because you know what, when she won, she was perfect for Miss International, and 3 years down the line, she's still perfect for Miss International. She's very feminine, she's very chill. She does have that, that slowness, that ease, in the way she conducts herself. So in a way, these are all traits that are very Miss International. But in terms of demeanor, I think that Hannah focused too much on that. She was, for me, really, really nice, really, really warm and accommodating, that we sort of forgot about the competitive spirit. And I think that you will all agree with me that because Hannah was just so accommodating with everyone else, even in photos, you could see it in her posture, you could see it in her demeanor. She would blend in, she hardly stood out. In fact, the only time that I saw Hannah stand out was during the national costume. I saw that playfulness in the look on her eyes. I saw a little bit of that cheekiness. That she was wearing something that she really, really liked. And that was the only time that I saw a spark in Hannah during her campaign. And um, another factor as to why Hannah probably didn't advance any further was that the past few titles of Miss International was dominated by Asian queens. In fact, Bint reigning for 3 years probably, gave the organization a little bit of that fatigue. I'm not saying Asian fatigue, but you get what I mean. Maybe they wanted somebody different, someone else. In fact, if you're going to check the roster of winners of Miss International, since 2002, all of the winners of Miss International have been from Asia and Latin America. So I think it would make sense, especially when we discussed this in the previous live sesh, that Miss International is rebranding and they're most likely going to give the crown to someone who hasn't really been winning or hasn't had a win in quite some time. So it makes sense to turn the title around and then give the title to our European delegate this time, and uh, a deserving delegate at that. And I think the most important reason as to why Hannah did not advance further at Miss International, and I think this is the hardest to swallow, is that it simply was not meant for her. Hannah could have gone through that rigorous Philippine training program. Hannah could be the most hyped candidate, of course, carrying the Philippine sash. But at the end of the day, even if Hannah is perfect for the part, this year there are others who were more perfect for the part. I think that we have to be a little easy on ourselves and not blame really the training program, the camps, who we think aren't in tune with what Miss International is looking for, and really start considering that we're probably not all that. I mean, we've had a really good run at these international pageants for more than 10 years. There's this oh my factor if, Philippines continues the streak. I'm not saying we have to be complacent with our training program. I'm not saying that we just have to admit and accept this. What I'm saying is that we continue our rigorous training program. We continue sending our best girls to these pageants, but also manage your expectations, because the other countries out there, they're catching up. And in a way, they're also catching up with Filipino help, with a lot of these Filipino trainers also, banking in on training other countries. So Miss International, you might think that they're just going to serve this to Hannah, but in a way, we now have like this eye-opening experience that no matter how hard we prepare for something, if it's not meant for us, it's not meant for us. And the simplest explanation as to why Hannah did not advance any further was because they felt that there were others who performed more than Hannah. There were others who looked the part even better than Hannah. So I guess this is our piece of humble pie, and I guess that whatever happened here at Miss International will not deter us from really supporting and rallying for our two girls. For this, I hope you guys were enlightened. There's really no use crying over spilled milk. and we can just move on and just really rethink our training program. Don't think that Hannah did a misstep or anything to derail her campaign at Miss International. It just wasn't meant for her. So I will see you guys on Sunday. Let's talk more about this. Let's talk more about Miss Universe. And yeah, thank you guys. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.